Believe it or not, we are only 3.5 weeks away from the Huskers kicking the season off versus Cincinnati. And every year here at Big Red Rant, we like to take an in-depth look at each position room before the season starts. You know, Gary, in recent years past, it's been fun doing these, but now it seems even more important than ever considering how much turnover this roster has seen in Matt Rule's third year. We talked about this a little bit before, and we both agreed simultaneously that we think that the position that seems the most intriguing that we should start with, and I know why I feel that way, but in your opinion, why do you see this running backs room as so interesting this season?
Just because of the lack, or maybe lack isn't the right word, the uncertainty of the depth. Obviously, Emmett Johnson's the guy, and I think he's more than capable. But the duration of a season, let alone the Big Ten, elements in the weather, things like that. I don't remember the last time we had a running back play the entire season without maybe not even significant injuries, just can't play a full game or doesn't get a lot of practice at certain stretches because they're dealing with some things and you're trying to mitigate the wear and tear on a guy's body, especially if they're getting a lot of carries in games. We'll get into individual players, but after Emmett, it's kind of like, all right, is a guy like Ives going to be ready to go, or are you just relying on some of these new guys that haven't really been here that long to step up and be able to handle a good portion of the load as far as the running game goes? One big thing I think that is going to help that is the Holgerson style, where I think the running backs will be used a lot in the pass game. In doing that, I think we've already seen one receiver get moved to running back. I think you'll see some receivers line up in the backfield or motion in the backfield, also the tight ends, and get short passes, things like that that are kind of, we talked about it in one of the other videos, like extensions of the pass game that's actually runs. So hopefully, Emmett's been durable. You know, I mean, he was really durable last year. Granted, you had a lot of Ramir Johnson. You were kind of waiting on the injury situation with Gabe Ervin, but like those guys are gone. You know, we've gone into the last few seasons with a running back by committee just because you had guys that did different things, whether it was Dowdell being more of a downhill power runner, Ramir being more of like a third down Swiss Army knife you could throw to him. He could pick up things in the pass protection, speed, you know, shiftiness with Emmett, things like that. I think now your running back by committee is everybody behind Emmett. And I don't think it's because you have so many guys that are good at different things. I think it's because you don't know what you have. And it's topics like this are tough for guys like you and I because characters at practice is Sean Callahan and Steve Sipple at practices. Obviously, we're not seeing that. We're just taking feedback from what we get. The coaches aren't going to come out and say, this guy's not ready. Don't expect to see him. You know, they're just going to, guys are progressing, doing their thing. You're going to get a lot of the coach speak. So until games start and we see guys and we actually hear either them directly say, this guy's going to be the backup, or this guy's going to split carries with Emmett, or these two guys will come in when need be to spell Emmett, or the games get going and we see it, we're not going to have a clue. We're obviously going to be a lot of speculating, but it just seems pretty risky to be right on the edge, in my opinion, a lot of Husker fans' opinions, of being one of the top teams in the Big Ten and not obviously below average like we've been. But I think people are kind of expecting to skip that just middle of the pack and be one of the top teams, or, you know, amongst the higher end teams. So to be kind of going in with one guy and that's your only certainty in that area is just, you know, it makes me a little nervous, or kind of makes me think that they either have some other big plan of what they think, how they're going to run the offense, or they're just like, yeah, we weren't able to get a guy in the portal like we wanted, and we're going to roll with what we've got and see what happens between, like I said, if Ives is ready to go, or if one of these younger guys can step up and do their thing. I think in a perfect world, Emmett stays healthy all year. Ives has come up enough that he can spell him when need be, and you can redshirt some of these young guys and maybe some of the guys that you want to use as at multiple positions, as multiple weapons, you know, whether that's an H-back type deal, receiver, lined up in the backfield, different things like that. So to me, that's the biggest question mark, but also like fascinating position going into the season because of, you know, the bulk of those reasons. What about you? Do you think it's plausible that Emmett gets to an entire season and we don't really have to worry about it? Or are you confident that, say, Ives or a guy is able to back him up and then it gets sketchy? Or do you think there's as significant of a drop off after Emmett as I do?
I love the way Emmett's bulked up, right? That leads you to think that he'll be more durable this season. But it's really hard to just go straight to, oh yeah, I think he'll be healthy all year. I don't think anyone's going to be healthy all year. Football is such a, as we know, intense contact sport. I think everybody plays through injuries during the year. Will it keep him out? Probably. We'll probably have at least quarters of play where he can't go from time to time. I'm not so much worried about young guys not being able to foot the bill when they come in, because running backs to me is that position where you can plug and play guys. Young guys, inexperienced guys, they get their shot and it seems like, oh wow, this kid's ready. Like, it's not that way with wide receivers. They have a hard time getting off the line. It's not that way usually with quarterbacks. Linemen struggle, but running backs, I feel like running backs are easier to plug and play at young ages because they just go out there and do what they do, and they're not as affected by inexperience. I mean, they're trying not to get tackled. They're not usually having to push older, stronger men around. But let's start with Emmett Johnson, who the Huskers are grateful to have had come back after he looked at transferring out. He was originally a 3-star running back. He's 5'11". They've got him listed at 200 pounds. That might have shot up. I mean, I don't know what they're saying he is now. Maybe he's a whole 210, 215, 220. He's a real beefcake at this point. Hypothetically, let's say he stays healthy the whole season or the majority of it. How many carries per game do you see him getting? And what's a total yards amassed rushing do you think he needs to hit for it to be considered a successful season? I think it's 1,000 yards. I think in this offense, 1,000 yards should be attainable if he were to be healthy the whole year.
I don't know. I go back and forth on that. Over half of his production from last year was once Holgerson took over in those last 4 games, including the bowl game. A good chunk of that, like his big game against Wisconsin, where he had like 98 receiving yards, 100 some rushing yards. I think that's a little bit more indicative of what you'll see Holgerson trying to do, at least. When you go back and look at the running backs Holgerson's had in his offenses, whether he was a coordinator or coach, nothing crazy big or splashy, a couple 1,000-yard rushers, but he incorporates the running backs into the passing game. That's where I kind of, when you ask about how many carries does he need, I'd be careful on trying to pinpoint the amount of carries and be more concerned with the touches. Like if he's getting 20 plus touches a game, whether that's passes or runs, I think that's where you'd like to be. That's where I would like to see them be, because then he's still a threat that defenses have to worry about. I think if the offense, especially the passing game, looks anything like what I'm anticipating it looking like, it's going to make life a lot easier for him. You know, kind of what you were saying about running backs are a little more plug and play. And there's proof in that when you look back. You know, Dowdell came in last year later and was like one of the main running backs. Now, granted, that was more Satterfield's doing than anything else. He preferred Dowdell over Emmett, but you know, Gabe Urban started as a freshman. When Grant got here, he came in right away and was playing. So it's like, it's not always next guy up that's been there. It's just whoever works for what they're trying to do at the time. Doesn't matter how much experience they have. So to your point, yes, but we've never had as much focus on the pass game as I think there's going to be this year. We know how much of an emphasis Matt Rule already put on running backs being able to block, being able to pass protect. And I think that's more significant if you're going to be a little heavier on the pass side, but especially when you're trying to protect an asset like Raiola. You don't have Harburg that's going to take off and run and doesn't mind contact and dishes it out as much as he takes it. You're going to really try to protect Raiola. So I think that's going to be significant. And I think that takes away a little bit from what you're saying of whoever looks good, just put him in there, because you know, if the blocking's right, they're gonna be able to eat either way. I don't think that's necessarily the case in this situation, because there's going to be such a significance of importance on how well guys can help be that pass protection for Raiola. But to me, if Emmett's getting in the 20 to 25 range of touches a game, obviously a lot more on the handoff side than the passing side or receiving side, I think that's like a pretty sweet spot you'd like to be. You're not getting him 35 carries a game or something where he's getting beat unnecessarily, but it's definitely enough that he can excel in it. And you've seen, especially under Holgerson, how well he can excel in both the passing game and the running game. And I think he just kind of tried to do enough to make him a factor in the offense that defenses have to worry about it, but really allow what I think your strength is going to be is your quarterback and receivers. So carries, I don't know, close to 20, I would hope. But I think overall, if you're getting 20 to 25 touches a game out of him and able to keep him healthy, you're doing pretty well.
You know, we really probably should have run a disclaimer at the beginning of this video that says the most important thing is going to be who can pass protect the best at the running back position, because that is just so true. Let's move on to Quentin Ives. He's a different type of back. Again, he was a 3-star coming out of high school. 6'3", 215 pounds. He's a big boy. type of back I normally root for the most, but I'm trying to grow as a fan and just look at it from a perspective of I don't need it to be a big back. I don't need it to be a small speed. Just whoever's earning it. And like you said again, who's pass protecting the best. But my question with Ives is, do you think that he's going to be able to come back from this hamstring injury and wrangle his RB2 status back away from Mekhi Nelson, who we'll talk about here in a minute as well? Because it seems like Mekhi's ripping that status away from Quentin Ives.
He's one of the main ones I'm talking about when I say it's real tricky to just go off what little sample size we've seen of him playing in actual games and then just taking the coach's word for what we've heard, because you hear a lot of positive things about him, but I feel like last year was a really good opportunity with Gabe Urban's injury or coming back from it. Ramir Johnson's entire career seemed to be hampered with weird injuries. Sometimes they just be little lingering things that was tough for him to overcome or to completely get rid of, and then he had a couple bigger injuries. But those seem like perfect opportunities for him to be able to kind of force the staff's hand of playing him more. And for whatever reason, it's like they try to get him out there. They had him on special teams, things like that, and it just never really took. It never really got to where, like, okay, like Emmett, for example, when there was a nice cluster of backs before, when Grant was still there and Irvin and Ramir and all that, and it's like, man, we need to get Johnson in the game more. I don't feel like we've had that with Ives yet, and I don't know if that's just because we haven't seen him as much. When he's in, it's more to spell guys or to kind of see, all right, how's he doing with formations or sets or whatever. I don't know. And it's just not allowing him to really showcase what he's able to do that we're hearing he can do in practices and whatnot. But the hamstring thing, I worry about that because it's not something like an ACL where, like, oh man, he's done. But it's really hard for a guy in camp, especially this late into camp, when you're going into fall camp and you're a couple weeks out from your first game, to be on the field doing things that are going to be actual game planning stuff, getting the reps full speed when they're doing things like that, and rehabbing an injury. So you're either missing that time and trying to fully rehab so it's not a lingering issue, or you're trying to play through it and push through it, and it tends to be a lingering issue throughout the season or down the road for guys. So he's one of the biggest question marks, man. Like, I really hope that he can just kind of explode when he does come out and looks like, oh shit, okay, we're good now. We for sure have two backs. But I just feel like as long as he's been here at this point, and some of the situations from a running back group that we've been in, and him not really being, yeah, no big deal. We got Ives, we'll run him 10, 15 times a game. Like, you're just not seeing that. And there's obviously a reason for it. I just hope that whatever that reason is figured out, moved on from, or to your point, what you were kind of hinting at, where I'm thinking we're going to go here next or shortly, is one of these young guys is standing out to the point, and Holgerson kind of alluded to it this last week, that you're still trying to work him in and have him as another body and a guy who's been with the program for a little bit since rules got in there, essentially. But you don't feel like you have to rely on him if Emmett goes down, because you've got somebody else. So, but I mean, you can kind of say that about all these guys. That's the biggest mystery to me at that position, is Quentin Ives.
Regardless of who gets it, Ives or Nelson, or, maybe Connor Booth steps up even further, or injuries happen and one of the younger guys needs to be thrust into that position. Whoever it is. What does the RB2 role even look like in this offense, do you think? I mean, should we be that worried about it?
Yeah, absolutely, I would. Because you have to have multiple backs, especially in the Big Ten, just because of the way tempo goes, weather, things like that. You in theory, you're going to run the ball so much that it's just way too much to expect out of one guy on a consistent Saturday to Saturday basis. In that perspective, as like you're spelling Emmett Johnson, I don't think it's as significant, because you come in on some third downs or you're beating a team pretty decent. You put a guy in, everything's fine. Now, if Emmett goes down to injury and you've got a Michigan game coming up, a USC game coming up, Penn State when we go there, things like that, and you're going in with your second running back, you better have the confidence, and he better have the confidence that he could be the number one guy, whether Emmett was hurt or not. And I don't think right now we have that. I don't think the coaches have that peace of mind. I'm speculating, obviously. Again, I don't know for sure. That's where my concern lies. I'm not worried about Emmett in this. I am worried about him if he goes down for whatever reason. Like you're saying, if it's a quarter here or there, or even a handful of play, a series or two here or there in an important game, I think would be critical. I think it's catastrophic if he goes down for multiple weeks, or at some point in the season's over. Like, pray that doesn't happen. But then it's drastically different. There's a difference between, in a basketball perspective, I'm coming off the bench at the 6 minute mark for this guy who's a stud on the team, as opposed to this dude's out for a month and I'm the guy that's taken over. It's just they're two different scenarios where I'm not as concerned if we're just trying to mitigate Emmett's minutes so we're not beating him, but I'm really worried, and it's way more significant if he's out and you're looking for that guy, the guy to take over the running game and not just be serviceable, but to make an impact on these games, because you see how close these games get, especially in the middle and the end of the season, and how much trouble Nebraska's had at the end of seasons once it gets to the month of November. This year, that's where, as of right now, before the season started, before anybody's played any games, it looks like that's where the toughest part of the schedule is going to be, is that point in the season. So it makes me, even a little more concerned, because by then you've got how many games, how many carries, how many minutes, how many hits on Emmett. I don't know. I hope this dude's an Iron Man, because I don't know. But with Ives, he keeps being there. He keeps being mentioned as the number 2 or maybe the number 3. And now with all these young guys, it's kind of been a foregone conclusion he's going to be the number 2 guy. And for as much as they went out and paid the money and got the guys they wanted and really needed at different positions, they didn't seem to do that at running back. I know they were looking to get a guy in the portal, but they clearly didn't open a checkbook for some guy to get in, or overpay or do whatever they had to do to pull a guy away from other schools or whatever. So that kind of gives me a little peace of mind. Maybe they're not that worried. Maybe they do feel good with what they have behind there. We just aren't familiar with a lot of these guys, at least in game time situations. So again, man, just more of a mystery, but I'd be really worried about if the situation is what it seems to be to me, where you've got Emmett and then you've got a bunch of guys that you're trying to sort through and see what's going on. That concerns me. If they feel confident they've got 1, maybe 2 guys that could fill in if Emmett's gone for any, serious amount of time, then great. I hope that is the case. But it's just, it's just another topic that I've got to wait and see, because we don't know what we don't know.
Let's move on to what we thought was going to be the third running back, Mekhi Nelson, another 3-star prospect, 6 foot, 190 pounds, out of Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania. I think I'm saying that right. This is his time to shine. This is his moment to, like I had said, steal that title away and become the undisputed number 2 running back. And that would put him in a prime position to take over from Emmett once he leaves and be the guy at Nebraska. I'm sure he's champing at the bit for that. And they're making it sound like he is ready and seizing that opportunity. I really like what I see on tape from him. In high school, they ran a lot of him at quarterback. Don't love his throwing motion. Luckily, we don't have to worry about that. But it's interesting. Like, I think Holgerson could, if he chose to, put in some, I don't know, wildcat or direct snaps or just something like that, where you've got Mekhi playing a little bit of Rex Burkhead quarterback, if they feel like they need to get that creative. With Dylan Raiola, you probably don't need to, but he's speedy, he's shifty. Overall, man, I'm just super excited to see him touch the field this year, and I think we're going to.
Yeah, when I'm watching a lot of these guys' high school tape, I don't get too excited when they're destroying people, because a lot of these guys have multiple schools talking to them to go play D1 football, and they're playing with guys who are never going to play football again after that, or their football's not even their main sport. It's just, it's really hard to
Gas
gauge.
station employees.
Yeah, some of them. It's really hard to.
No offense.
It's really hard to grasp the talent levels surrounding them, both on their team and the competition they're playing against. So I look, like, from a running back perspective, more like, how quick do they recognize the lanes? What angles are they taking on defenders, whether they're trying to get their full speed trying to pursue on them, or they're coming down the run lane head on at them. How patient are they behind their blockers? Do they just get the ball and go? Are they hesitant to cut up? Are they shy of the A and B gaps and always trying to bounce everything outside, or vice versa? Things like that. And I'm with you. Like, there's a lot of good things I like when I see him, but the most significant thing to me is Holgerson this last week talking, mentioning him by name out of the whole group, that everybody's kind of talking about who's going to be that backup guy. Holgerson's not the type, like, Matt Rule maybe isn't completely, but Matt Rule, I feel like, will, if he mentions a guy's name, he wants to bring up a bunch of other people. So it's like he's not leaving people out or having favoritism or whatever. I feel like Holgerson doesn't care. Like, he'll say if a guy needs to get some work, or, last year, I think it was Fedoni, he was talking about his blocking, and he said things about guys in pass protection and calling out receivers that won't block on the edges and things like that. Like, but so then the other way, when he's giving props to a kid, I feel it's really genuine that this guy is actually standing out to him, and it's not lip service of, well, don't worry, we got this guy or whatever else. Like, he mentioned him out of Ives and Parker and Booth and all these other guys that everybody's kind of, well, maybe him, maybe them, whatever. So, not to keep dwelling on the Ives thing, but as long as he's been here and as hard as it's been for him to find carries in games, it kind of makes me lean more towards it will be Nelson over Ives, especially now that you have, depending on the severity of it, that you have the hamstring situation happening with Ives. But again, we're going off high school tape and one mention that the offensive coordinator made because we haven't seen these guys in game time. So I would assume Nelson would probably be the first guy we see after Emmett at this point, but that's complete assumption speculating off of that little bit. I mean, do you feel he's the clear number two, or kind of it's his slot to lose, or do you think it's more of a battle?
It definitely sounds like he's taken that spot. And you're right, when it comes to watching this high school tape, it's embarrassing how slow and tiny some of these defenders are chasing these guys. But of the criteria that you mentioned of what you do look for, making your cut at the right times, noticing when a gap opens up and being able to hit that hole, just making the right reads. Connor Booth looked the best to me of any of these guys on tape. And I don't want to be a homer because he's from Nebraska, but either he is a running back genius or he was playing against the worst competition in the country at high school. He was making people look so bad. I know he's not necessarily a burner. This isn't like a 4.2 speed guy. So why does it look like everyone is chasing him from 10 yards behind?
I think it has a lot more to do with the competition. And that's not to take anything away from him. If you could be a legit 5-star potential, 3 years later, you're going to be up for the Heisman and you play against weak competition in high school. It's not his fault or problem, or doesn't mean his skills are any less. I feel like the farther down this list we go, and it's just a feeling that you're looking at guys that the staff would love to redshirt, that, give them their 4 games or some snaps in a few games to get some actual gameplay, not just practice, see what they can do, see how comfortable they are when things change, when the defense gives you something different than what you think they're going to give you, if they can adjust well, again, the pass protection situations, and then let them keep developing so that they're that much further along when they do start getting significant minutes. Again, we're talking about both scenarios of as a backup or as, okay, everybody's up a spot because Emmett's gone for some reason. So I think right now, I would guess he's probably your 4th, but maybe 5th, maybe more of a situational type guy. But if we're in a situation where we're needing to look at quality carries because Emmett's not available, I think he moves up, and I think you look at Vernon as redshirt because he gives you a dimension that some of these other guys don't. You've got some of these guys are a little bit more shifty, a little bouncier, want to get out into space and run and things like that, and he seems to have zero problem doing that, but also putting his head down, getting behind his pads, and running north and south on guys, and whatever happens, happens. And typically those types of guys, as long as they have some lateral movement, are a little bit better and a little bit more willing and anxious to crack a linebacker or a defensive end that gets loose when they are in pass protection. So again, sound like a broken record, without seeing these guys in taking live snaps and doing things in these situations, I'm assuming, but I would think that he's probably, from a physical aspect, going to be one of your better blockers as far as helping to protect Raiola in that situation. So I don't know that he's going to go out and take a handoff inside the 20 and house it, but I think you have pretty good peace of mind with a kid like that seems to be very aggressive, likes to stick his nose into things from an offensive perspective, and let him be the guy that's protecting in pass protection, as opposed to maybe a smaller, shiftier, little bouncier, wanting to get out in space and run type guy that maybe isn't always looking, more going to try to get in the way of a guy and give some effort, where I feel like he's going to go try to be a lot more physical from the pass protection standpoint.
Another player that these coaches consistently bring up, whether it's in passing or they stop to actually talk more about him, is Isaiah Mosey. Do you think he and Jamarian Parker are just destined to be redshirt and stowed away, which I'm fine with. If both of those guys are okay with that, as far as they're not going to transfer because they're not getting to play right away, I would love that. Jamarian Parker, the only 4-star running back we have on the roster right now, has got the same exact build as Emmett Johnson, or at least what he had coming out before he muscled up. Are those guys both destined to just be red shirts this year, or is Mosey actually going to play? Like, I see Mosey getting his 4 games of playtime in before getting redshirted. I don't know about Jamarian.
I think in a perfect world, if you're not dealing with an injury to Emmett, all of these guys are going to play because you can having 4 games to let guys play and still being able to redshirt them. If you've got 4, maybe even 5 guys that you can alternate when you're rotating them in and never get past that 4 game usage, you get to see what they do well, what they need to work on, and what plays and schemes, what counter to the what the defense is giving you, certain guys fit in better than others. And I think all of them have their talents, and all of them, I guarantee you, have things they need to work on and develop. Without seeing them, that's just the nature of football. But I think we'll see a lot of these guys just to kind of let the Holgerson and Rule and EJ see what they actually have in games. But I don't think that you're just shelf a guy and go, you're not playing or whatever. I think you want to see what you can get out of it. You take full advantage of that 4 game window that you have to still redshirt them. Obviously, things like that start going out the window if injuries happen. But those guys that you're talking about, I feel like they are more explosive, or like the plays that you want to be, like your halfback screens, or when you want to get your running back involved more in the pass, or you're gonna try to get things wide and get around the edge and go. I think situational, you'd see those two in more of those types of plays, especially when you already have some speed and you're spreading out, going receiver heavy. I think those guys would be perfect for something like that. Just gonna have to wait and see, I guess, to see how well they are when you need 2 yards on a 3rd and 2. I mean, are they the types of guys you want in that situation? Maybe. I mean, there's just because like you're saying, the little bit smaller stature and resembling Emmett a little bit more doesn't mean they can't do it. There's tons of smaller backs that can, but I think you just kind of strategically place them in spots where you think they can excel in games and still save their eligibility until your hands force that you can't do it. But I think those two specifically are a little bit more of, your, I don't know if explosive is the right word, but a little bit more dynamic style backs than we're playing Iowa and it's a grind the ball out type game. I don't know that right away as true freshmen, those are the types of guys that you're going to put in those situations to see what they do. I think you're back to like a Booth type for those types of games. But I think there's going to be plenty of games and plenty of situations in games where you get a good rotation of those young guys just to see what they have and get them some on-field experience. But also, if you're able to, if you're fortunate enough to be able to save their eligibility, you can still redshirt them.
Tell us what you guys think of the Huskers running back room this season. Are you hyped or not? Thank you for hanging out, and we'll see you guys soon.